Hi, I'm Marit and I wanted to share you a thinking tool that has helped me learn to do testing better over the years. The A4 anchoring tool. This tool is really about self-management, keeping track of my wandering thoughts, keeping them in a leash so that I can find new information without unintentionally getting off track when I'm using the product I'm testing as my external imagination. The tool is really simple. It is really an A4 paper, an empty A4 paper, or rather a leaflet of empty A4 papers. But when I look at it, I see that the paper should be split into 4 sections with very specific meanings. Each paper, as such, represents to me a day of work in the life of a tester. On the top left corner, I place information about the mission or the sandbox I'm responsible for, as I understand it right now. I often find that my mission doesn't change, so I've learned to use a post-it note with 1 or 2 sentences that I can move from a page to another as the days change. When I learn about my mission and how to better describe my responsibilities, I usually create a new post-it note to leave the old one as part of the story on how my learning evolves over time. Let me give you an example of what I mean with a mission or sandbox. I used to work in a security company where each team was responsible for a functional area around the product. My personal responsibility then was installations. After each installation, I would check that the product was in an appropriate state, and I would use my tester freedom to dig into various different interesting areas. Sometimes I would notice something specific after an installation, e.g. in a firewall, an area that I considered much more intriguing in many ways than the installations. I would assess my use of time with firewall, remembering where my responsibilities of delivering information lie, with the note to remind me of that. It was my anchor. I could, and often I would, go and dig a little outside my perceived responsibility. If I find myself spending more time on someone else's sandbox, it might be time to pass the observation on to others responsible for that area, to not neglect my own responsibility, because others might not be as keen to come to my area. So the mission sandbox area, it's my anchor. It doesn't mandate what I can and can't do, but it helps me keep true to myself, where I am and where I should be. Similarly, I have another anchor on the top right corner. In my mind's eye, it says charter. And charter is a way of describing what I plan on doing today. Again, an example from the installations team. I could decide in the morning that today I will test 3 upgrade installations because I want to pay a little more time, a little more attention to each of these installations, be a bit more thorough in analyzing the state after the installation. I could decide I will go with the default selections and make a note of that, and leave all installation variables for other days. So kind of thinking, what will I spend my day on? Again, when I test, the note of the charter helps me keep true to my personal promise of what I will try to work on, and to note when I do things other than I imagined. It could be that the first 3 is problematic. These installations, first of the 3 installations, is problematic in surprising ways, and the note of charter helps me tell my story of not having done all 3 by the end of the day and noticing that, and needing more time because the first one surprised me. Again, this is my personal tool, so the work isn't given to me from any external list or by any external manager. It's just a tool that helps me learn. I can decide to split things differently if I want to. It helps me not declare things done just because I used up the time, and it encourages me to think against the short-term plan that I'm making as I go. The top of the paper, all in all, it describes my intent, long-term and short-term intent, and encourages me to reflect on those regularly. The bottom part of the paper serves a little different purpose. On the bottom right corner, I will put notes on details. Details are anything I need to remember for later while I'm testing. I usually use 3 shorthands for my notes. The hashtag means bugs. I can choose to either scribble down a little note to isolate and report the problem better later, or I can stop right now my idea of the current charter and take time on isolating and reporting the bug now. It's an active choice depending on my perception of the urgency of passing on the information for someone else. I find that it takes me a minimum of 10 minutes, sometimes up to a day, to isolate some of the problematic behaviors. Actually, even the simplest behaviors. I can do that right now, or save this work for next day. The question mark means discussions. I know someone, or should find someone, to talk to about the thing. It could be a developer, an analyst, or a manager. I've noticed that if I ask questions as they come, I may be a destructive force for other people's focus. With the amount of questions I have, others can get interrupted a lot. And it often works better that I first of all check all the questions against documentation I have already with answers, and then only pile them up for asking from people a couple of times a day instead of all the time. Or I can choose that an individual question in my list is just worth all the interruptions, both my charter and on whatever the other person is doing, and go and ask that right away. The third detailed note is marked an X. These are things I want to keep for future, things I want to note down as central ideas I've learned and want to put into my test documentation, or nowadays more often in agile teams, ideas of scenarios I want to be added into automation that I came up with while I was exploring. For any details here, I have a choice, either now or later. The last quarter in the bottom left corner is about other days' work, other charters. What will I do tomorrow? What will I do in a week? What ideas I have that I won't be doing today. As I'm testing the 3 installations I decided to test on today, I realized there's an upgrade scenario that I'm now seeing that exists that I haven't looked at for quite a while. It could be an idea that I will act on right now, dropping whatever I was doing now, or it could be that I leave it for later. It's work that I will do maybe tomorrow. The bottom part, all in all, describes my learnings around the intent. As days go by, I fill these A4 papers in to support my thinking in testing. And when someone asks me what I've been doing, the notes help me tell a story of my testing. They help me tell when I've learned about my mission. They help me see what charters I've been through and how much of bugs and questions and documentation work I've generated. And if the amount of work is ever going to be over, or if I'm still generating important new test charters as I test that need to be paid attention to in testing for upcoming days. Try it out yourself. Let me know how it works for you. It's been golden for me as practice of self-discipline needed for exploration. Nowadays, it's kind of in my spine, so that you see similar structures in any of the mind maps I create. But I still find the physical paper was an invaluable tool while I was learning all this stuff.